Strength Warehouse presents Go Heavy or Go Home podcast. I am your host, Nate Boley. In this podcast, we talk about strength, fitness, nutrition, and all things Strength Warehouse related. Hey guys, welcome back to the podcast. Today I have Coach Megan Boley, co-owner of Strength Warehouse, and my lovely, beautiful wife here. She is going to be accompanying us on the podcast. I know you guys have been listening to me, Soul, on the podcast, but now we have some new guests. So welcome, Megan.
Hello.
Introduce yourself a little bit. It's been a minute since you've been on the podcast.
Yeah, you just introduced me already, but I am Megan, co-owner of Strength Warehouse, and Nate's amazing wife.
And what do you do at the gym?
Everything. Not everything. I do all kinds of things.
You wear a lot of hats.
I wear a lot of hats. I coach. I coach our Babies and Barbells program. I coach several online powerlifting clients that we have. I do lots of the admin work. I do social media.
Cool.
All kinds of random tasks.
And your favorite thing to do is coaching powerlifting.
Correct. Coaching women's powerlifting is my favorite.
Yeah, for sure. And you have had an extreme amount of success.
Yes.
Yeah, and you've had a lot of success, and it's very awesome. Congrats. We had a powerlifting competition this last weekend at Forever Strong Gym. The 2024 Powerlifting Oregon Championship, I believe it was called. How'd that go for you?
It was awesome. It was a lot of fun. All the ladies did great. I think we had 4 total.
4
from our gym?
Yeah, 4 from our gym.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody got first place, except for there was 1 second place that was in there as well.
Yeah.
We won't talk about that.
Donna.
We won't talk about Donna getting a second place. Sorry, Donna. I have to blast you on that one. Yeah, it seemed like it was great. We had one new lifter, and she did good, and she had a lot of fun. And then another one that only had done, that was her second one. And then 2 that had done several.
Yeah, so we kind of had all 3 levels.
Yeah.
Brand new, kind of new, but has done it once before, and then several.
A couple that have gone across the world to compete as well.
Yep.
Yeah. There was some national records broken, I believe, and some state records broken.
Yep.
Yeah, that's pretty awesome.
Yeah.
Pretty awesome. I like that. It was my first competition as an international referee, even though I did not get my shirt in time. So I was still, everybody saw me as a national referee, but I knew in my heart that I was an international referee. He
was super butthurt about the shirt.
I still am. I got to sit down and help referee one of the newest lifters. He is doing his practical.
Refs.
Yeah, the newest refs. Yeah, he's out of Medford. It was really fun to get to chat with him and kind of show him what I've learned in the past 5-ish years that I've been refereeing. And it was a lot of fun. And then our lifters did really well as well. And it was a great time. It was a good time. What did we do? We went out to dinner afterwards.
Yeah, we stayed in an Airbnb we could all stay together as a team, which is a lot of fun. We've done it before. So we just get an Airbnb that has enough rooms for us all. We get there the day before weigh-ins or the day of weigh-ins. We do weigh-ins, go out to dinner as a team, go home. Athletes do their mobility drills through the evening.
We make fun of them while we're drinking whiskey. And
I have some wine.
There's some wine and they can't.
They can't have any. And then we go to bed early and
we listen to a lot of people snore. That was a great time.
It was
and that's really kind of what I wanted to segue into is you and I have done, powerlifting meets individually, and we've done it as a team. And every time we've done it as a team, it's so much more fun, and we do it way better. It's just so much more fun, and it's so much more productive as a sport. And I have been advocating this since the second I got involved in a team, that powerlifting is best served as a team sport. I know there's a lot of lone wolves out there that want to go it alone and do their thing, but man, you guys get a team together, you're going to do so much better. Do you agree with that?
I do. And it's just more fun, like you said.
More fun, yeah. it's one of those things. It's like powerlifting is hard. You have to grind it out. You have to do long workouts. You have to do weigh-ins. You have to do the whole thing. It's one of those things. It's just so much better as a team when you get to grind together, suffer together, and then win together as well and have fun. So, all right, Megan. So one thing we chatted about over the weekend was powerlifting newbie gains versus like a plateau, right? So when you are brand new in powerlifting, then you experience newbie gains, right? What does that look like? I know you've dealt with several of these in the recent past.
So when people begin with us, they're brand new, super green.
Not always, but sometimes.
Yeah. And then once they start working with us, they'll start getting PRs monthly, weekly, whatever it may be. It's very frequent when they very first begin.
So what does that do to the client?
It hypes them up big time. They're so super excited. They're like, oh, wow, I'm getting all these PRs. I'm doing great. And then they just build and build and build until they hit a plateau.
Yeah. So what happens at that point?
The newbie gains are gone.
That's when the real work starts.
Yeah. It can be disheartening as an athlete when you have gotten PRs monthly, or every time you do a 1 rep max testing, you get a PR, and then all of a sudden you're like 12 months in and you're like, I'm not getting PRs anymore. I'm actually doing worse.
Yeah. So sometimes that's the way it is. Like, I've gone through a block and lifted less at the end of the block than I had the previous block.
Yeah.
There's just things that happen in life, in training blocks, and as your training age grows, it gets harder and harder to add on weight to the bar.
Yeah. So I really try to set my athletes up knowing this, going into it, knowing that. So when we start getting close to that plateau time, we have a conversation about it. And I just inform them that this is a normal thing that happens, and I don't want them to get super upset about it. It's not that they're not doing what they're supposed to be doing or they're not doing well enough. It's just part of the game.
Yeah. So can you see that happening in their training?
Yeah.
Yeah. And so you try to preemptively say something.
Yeah. I just set them up for success, I'm not like, hey, we're going to go into 1 rep max testing. You should be getting a PR. Nothing like that.
I expect you to hit a 30-pound all-time, lifetime PR.
It's not going to happen all the time. It's not linear. Like lots of things in life. You're going to have ups and downs, and those 1 rep max PRs are going to get smaller and smaller and smaller, and you're going to have to work really hard for them the more you get into
100%. I mean, there's definitely a time where, even in today's age, where it's taken me like sometimes a year to add 5 pounds to one of my lifts. Mm-hmm. If you're not in for the long game, you could easily quit. Yeah. If you're like, I lifted less this block or the exact same, but it's really the mindset of broadening the horizon of your wins, right? Yeah. It's not always about having more weight on the bar. It's maybe I was able to, my back off sets, I was able to add a little bit more weight to those, a little bit more reps. Yeah. Maybe my accessories went up. All those types of things. You have to just it can't be a one linear path. If the barbell doesn't get heavier, I've lost. Yeah. If you have that mindset, you won't be in the game long. Yeah. So, and it's definitely a huge thing. I see a lot of people that happens to, especially if they're in the drug tested field where they're a natural athlete. That happens a lot, where you can't just do more performance enhancing drugs and then all of a sudden you have a new PR. Yeah. Right? So there's lots of technique, but that's the thing. Another thing of the spectrum of winning, maybe your technique got better. Maybe you had shoulder pain last block and now you don't. There's a lot of different types of things. So
yeah, that was a big part of it this last weekend. We've been struggling with a lot of injuries and just pain points in training. So having a meet and then not just feeling destroyed or like you can't move the day after, because we've been doing lots of mobility and rehab and work like that
That's the thing.
Huge.
You don't feel like you're destroyed after a powerlifting meet?
Like,
man, I don't think that's happened to me for like 10 years.
I mean, one of my athletes is struggling with some severe hip pain with squat and benching. So the fact that she went through the meet and didn't have that is huge. And
100%.
Another one that's struggling with back pain, and she went through it and she was like, I'm totally fine day after. She recovers really fast typically, but not having those significant pain points is a win for us.
And that's going to affect her next block because she's going to be able to recover faster and continue to lift heavier for a longer amount of time.
Yeah.
And you can contribute that to, I think some of that is to you and her new physical therapists are correlating very well.
Yeah.
And I think that's something that we strive to do at Strength Warehouse is, hey, you go see a physical therapist because of issues, because we're not physical therapists. We can't fix issues like that. That's not what our expertise is. Our expertise is powerlifting and programming. Now we can come up to a certain line of movement quality and that type of stuff and engagements, but we draw the line. We're not physical therapists. We're not doctors. And you have to work with somebody else that's more niche in that aspect. But we love to work with those people.
Yeah.
Like you've been on several calls.
Yep.
And emails, and you guys work really well together. And I think that's super awesome. And we try to do that with all of our athletes and even just regular clients that maybe aren't doing powerlifting, like a knee replacement or whatever.
Yep.
So that's great.
Yeah. I also had a client that competed the same day, but in a different state.
That's
She's
right.
all the way
I totally
over
forgot
in
about that.
Pennsylvania, so that was a different setup for me.
You're coaching basically, and she was 3 hours different, so we were like still waking up when she'd already.
Yeah, her
done all
squats.
the squats.
She was squatting like 6 a.m. So I woke up and she's squatting, and I was like, oh man, okay.
Here we
Here
go.
we are. So it was challenging to not be there for her, but we made a super detailed game plan, and she had her
husband there to support her.
She's done these before, so she knows what it's like, and I made her a whole spreadsheet, and she did great.
Good.
Yeah.
What did she end up taking? Do you know? Did she end up taking first place in her?
I'm not sure. She's coming back from an injury and a life that's been just chaotic. So the fact that she
flying back and forth across the country multiple times. So we just give her props for actually following through and completing a whole meet. So good job, Corinne.
Yeah.
All right, so we're going to move on here. Mindset in competition.
Yes.
What should your mindset be, and what should you be thinking about going in? Let's just talk about specifically like newer athletes.
Yep.
We can talk about after this. We can talk about like more advanced athletes, but
yep.
Talk about some newer athletes right now.
So like this last meet, I had an athlete that was brand new, super young, very first meet ever, not had a lot of coaching. So I had a conversation with her before the meet, and I just told her that our main goal is to successfully complete this meet and not
just one
not bum out.
One lift in squat, one lift in bench, one lift in deadlift. That is all we want. That's a win. I
don't like to set a lot of expectations for a very first meet. It's very nerve-wracking. You don't know really what to expect.
You definitely don't want to try to do a weight cut.
No.
Never. I never recommend a weight cut on the first meet. It just adds a whole nother level of complexity and anxiety. And I talked to this athlete as well, and I was like, hey, how you feeling? She's like, great. And then when we got to the meet, I saw
a different story.
A different story. The anxiety was there for real. Mm-hmm. But she did great, and with our help and coaching, she did good.
Yeah.
So and she's stoked about it, wants to do another one.
Yeah, brand new, main goal, just get through the meet, complete the meet. So one squat, one bench, one deadlift. Mm-hmm. If we get more than that, awesome. Yeah. But that's our main goal, is just get through, don't injure yourself.
And learn the game.
Yeah.
It's a different game. When you step on the platform and you have 3 referees and a timer and a bunch of people staring at you, it's different. You can say everything you want until you get out there, unless you are just like born to be a star. It's going to be different for you.
Yeah.
Yeah. I still struggle with that today. Like my first squat, I've done like, I don't even know, 15 competitions now? I don't even know. And I've done even more referees. Get out on that platform, the first squat just drives me insane. I get the butterflies. As soon as that first squat's over, most of the time it's good.
Yeah.
What about more like an advanced athlete? What's their kind of mindset like going into a meet?
Yeah. Everyone's so different.
I guess it just depends on where you are in your career. Like for me, I lifted like 10 years before I ever got any kind of record. I always wanted to win, but I knew when I was going in, I was looking at the records, I'm like, I'm nowhere near those. I just want to beat the people at the meet. And that was my mindset going into a lot of the meets that I went to after I had gotten like 3, 4, 5 and under my belt. I'm a very competitive person, and I wanted to be the winner, or at least one or two, first or second.
Yeah, it's good. I mean, it's good to have competitive drive under you.
Yeah.
But you can't let that control your whole day. Or if the numbers don't go the way you want them to, let it ruin your whole day.
Well, and that's a great point, right? So we've seen this a couple times where somebody wants a specific number and they don't get the number, and they let that affect maybe in their squat or in their bench, and they let that number get to them, and then it affects their next lift.
Yeah.
Right? It's even happened to me. I remember one time I wanted a bench record. I didn't get the bench record. I was super mad about it. It affected my deadlift.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, there is something to be said about that. It's like you can want to be competitive and you can try for the gold or the silver or whatever, but if the numbers don't go the way they are, you have to adapt a new mindset as the meet's going.
Yeah. I mean, you have no idea what exactly you're going to be like on the day of the meet. So you have to keep that in mind when you're going into it. You just have to show up and do your absolute best for that day.
Yep.
You could show up and you're like, I just started my period. For my female athletes, that happens frequently.
What's up with that? It seems like it happens quite often.
It does happen quite often. It's like once a month it happens. Crazy.
Weird.
So you have to adjust. You just have to adjust your expectations and your mindset, because you're not going to be 100% typically on that day.
Especially if you did like a weight cut or anything like that. You're definitely not going to be And I always tell everybody, like, what do you expect at a meet? I expect 10 to 15% less than what you can do in the gym.
Yeah.
Because especially if you did a weight cut. Very rarely do I see people actually PR that's a solid lift. I see people PR, but their form is absolutely terrible and they're probably wrecked the next day. And are they going to lift? It depends on how old they are.
Yeah.
If they're 20, they probably will lift the next day. If they're 50, they're probably not.
Yeah. That's why we have gym PR, meet PR. We have separate PRs.
Yeah. So during the competition, again, that's another thing. It's like making sure that as the meet's going, you're not worried about anybody else. Now, there's strategic things you can do. Like one meet I went to, I wanted to win, and there was a guy that was clearly stronger than me when I was looking him up on Instagram. And he knows who he is if he listens to this podcast. Him and I had a great meet together. We supported each other. I ended up taking the meet by 1.5 pounds, but it was because I had taken strategic attempts to specifically beat him.
Yeah.
And he just wanted to get the biggest total. So you can have a different mindset if you know the game, if you've played it enough, you know your body and you're feeling good, and you know and you're kind of watching other people and you know you want to take first place. There's some specific things you can do. And if you get to that level, which I know you and Donna have dealt with that before, where there was a lady who was you guys were back and forth on trying to win.
Yeah.
And you guys were taking fourth attempts and taking chips and all sorts of stuff. And Donna ended up on top, and it was great. And that was a strategic plan that you guys on the whim was like, hey, this is what we're doing now. Change of plans. We're trying to do this. Like, we're doing it. That's totally cool. And that's what makes the game. Like, when that happened to me, that was one of my first or second times, I think it was, that I had somebody that was competitive with me, and we were neck and neck, and it lit a fire under me. I was super happy about it at the end.
My clients love it when they have other competitors in their weight and age class, because it's super common that, like, local meets, they're going to be the only one, because they're not in the open. A lot of my clients are not in the open category. So a lot of times they'll be the only one in their class, and they're like, man, like, it's just not as fun because they're pretty competitive, so they like to compete against someone. Once we get to like the national meets and the world meets, they have a few more people in their class, so it's a little bit more fun for them.
Yeah.
But I take care of all of that, so my athlete literally has no idea what they're competing against. Or I'm like, oh, you're going up 5 pounds, and they're like, okay.
Yeah.
But they have no idea that I'm choosing that because I want them to beat the person next to them.
Yeah, it's because you're a good coach and you're watching. We were at the meet last weekend, and there was a kid there, and he literally, all of his lifts were national records, and nobody said anything until one of our referees was like, hey, this is weird. Like, I trained the guy that has all the records in the same age and weight category, and this guy's destroying him. So he looked him up, and he went over to the kid and was like, hey, every one of your lifts you've done so far is a national record. Do you know that? And the kid was like, no. But once he knew that, they started looking him up, and you could tell he was like, oh my gosh, like, this is awesome. And he started getting his national records, and it was great. It was a great time. So having a good coach that like is preemptive and knowing kind of what's going on with records and all that type of stuff and competitiveness, if that's what your game is and you want to be competitive and break records, get yourself a coach that does that.
Yeah, it's huge. They literally just show up, and their job is just to lift the best that they can for that day. They don't have to think about anything else. They don't have to think about their attempts, what they're going to do next, what their records are. Like, I handle all of that.
Yeah.
So they don't have to think about or worry about any of that stuff.
They just have great time and take selfies.
Yeah, and eat snacks.
Yeah, and eat snacks. All right, so let's just jump off that for a minute. Let's talk about working around some injuries. So if you get a nagging injury, or depending on like how bad the injury is, obviously if like you're, a tendon in your knee or elbow or whatever, like something tears, God forbid that ever happens, like you just have like something nagging, what should you do? Should you just give up, quit?
Yeah, no.
You should absolutely just throw in the bag, right?
No.
Give me an idea of what that looks like. How would you deal with this as a coach for your clients? How would you work around it?
So there's modifications for just about everything that you can do. Depending on the injury that you have, I will use the clients that I have right now as examples. Several of them have knee replacements. I'm not sure why I got all these knee replacement ladies, but I do.
You're on like a forum of knee replacement ladies that want to powerlift.
Yeah. That
are a little bit like older in their life, and they're like, oh, Megan Bully's the one you want to find.
It's me. So volume for squatting for them is going to look a lot different than volume squatting for someone who does not have knee replacements.
Or knee injuries at all, because I'm the same way. Like, I don't have a knee replacement at all, but if I do heavy volume, my knee is jacked up.
Yeah.
I have to do a different scheme. And I think that goes hand in hand with younger athletes versus like aged athletes, because your knees can only handle so many heavy squats and so many heavy deadlifts.
Yeah.
And I think I already made a podcast and maybe a blog post about this, but training age makes a huge difference in how you program somebody.
Yes.
So continue.
Yeah. So we just kind of work around that volume-wise. There's a lot of mobility restrictions as well that come with that, depending on the severity of their injury, how well their rehabilitation afterward, like after their surgeries went, if they have great rehab after and they just nailed it and stuck to it, typically their mobility can be pretty good. But if they did not have the best rehab, mobility can really be a huge issue.
And it hurts, and it takes a long time to get past that.
Yeah, like years.
Yeah. But you prioritize that.
Yes.
And you're like, hey, we have to do this. Otherwise, you just have the hard conversations right up front, which makes it easier. Just have it right up front, and we just deal with it. Cool. All right. Well, that's great. Thanks, Megan, for that. I appreciate that. What about prioritize working on weaknesses to gain more? I am the worst at this. I am the worst. But what do you think? Just give me your insight on that. Coach, professional powerlifting Megan Boley.
Prioritizing weaknesses.
Yeah, so like something that's like a weakness, like in your squat or your bench or deadlift, like when something's happening and you're like, hey, this is a weakness of you need to prioritize these exercises to gain more on your lifts.
So we get into accessory work on that, which a lot of powerlifters are not super big on accessory work.
I think they're big on accessory work. I think they're not big on prioritizing accessory work that addresses their weaknesses.
Yeah, just accessory work that they want to do, and it's fun. So I prioritize really mundane, tedious movements that really isolate movements that they need. And it's super boring and they don't love it, but I make sure that they understand that this is the deal.
Sell yourself, Megan.
They got to do it.
Your clients are just going to have a blast with you.
They're going to have so much fun.
That's honestly it. You just got to do the things that make you, that are weak, will make everything better. If you always consistently work on your strong points, the weaknesses are the gap is gonna get bigger, and potentially pain, injuries. The risk of injury is gonna get even more.
Yep. And
I need to literally take my own advice here.
Yeah. So the pot. What is it? The pot. The black pot. I can't remember the saying.
Yeah. So
the pot calling the kettle black.
That's right.
Right?
The pot telling the kettle black. Okay. All right. So last but not least, before we get off here, because it's going to go on about 30 minutes here, but I want to talk about after you're done, or maybe potentially if you want to take a break. We're going to call this Beyond the Platform. This can be a really tough thing, and I've actually been dealing with this as my training age gets older and prioritize shift in my life. This can be a really, really tough thing. But once you decide that you're going to be potentially done for an exponential amount of time, or maybe forever, what happens next and how do you transition? What do you think about this? And I'll give you my thoughts after your thoughts, or I can give my thoughts first.
Yeah, it's challenging. I think it's a challenging transition because you've had this event that drives you and motivates you, that you work towards for so long, and this drive towards it, and then that's gone. So then how do you fuel that motivation? I'm asking you because you're doing this right now. Yeah,
absolutely. So there's a couple different things. So the first thing that I had to do in my transition, or just in my journey in powerlifting, I've been powerlifting since 2009. And I read an article a long time ago that was eventually you're going to get too old to do this anymore. You can't do it at the same level. And every 5 years, the level of whatever you're going to be doing is going to go down. And so you have to have it in your mindset that eventually it's going to go away, and you cannot wrap your identity around I am a powerlifter, or I am a CrossFit athlete, or I am a runner, or whatever you're identifying as. You cannot wrap your self-worth in that identity. Otherwise, when something eventually happens, God forbid it's a really nasty injury, or you're just sick and tired of being beaten up and you give it up, you're going to get really depressed, right? Because you've wrapped your self-worth in I'm a competitive athlete, and now you're no longer that. So that's the very first step to that. The second step is having a game plan afterwards, and so that can mean many things. Maybe you own a gym that does powerlifting. Maybe you're a coach. Maybe you are a meet director. Maybe you're a referee. Maybe you just go to meets and just watch other people do that.
Yeah, if it's something you really love and are passionate about, you can still be involved without competing yourself.
Yeah, absolutely. And so that's the thing. And maybe you only compete once every 4 years. Who knows what it is? You just have to be really flexible with everything you do. You can't be I was a mechanic for 16 years and I've been struggling with something, of that as well. Now I'm not a mechanic anymore. I don't work on cars. Now I'm a gym owner, and I, am an owner, and I work with a bunch of teams, and I don't even coach anybody anymore. How do I wrap in my self-worth? Well, it's all inside your mind, and of course, it's not always easy as it is said, but you just have to have that in your mind, being hey, every season of life is going to be different. If I truly love powerlifting and competing, how do I still be a part of it without actually being on the platform. And even if it is on the platform and you want to compete, maybe it's 1/16 of what you lifted in your actual prime, right? Maybe you squatted 400 pounds, benched 400 pounds, deadlifted 600 pounds. I'm not giving out my numbers by any means, but maybe you only squat 200 pounds and you bench 200 pounds and you deadlift 400 pounds. I don't know, whatever. If you still
how
feel,
easy would that be for you?
I'm just saying, if that's something that like really gives you joy, eventually you can make that, you can make it a possibility where I still want to compete on the platform, but I have to change my mindset. Is like, I'm not going to be the number one person. I may not even place at all, but I'm still going to enjoy the process of lifting, and I'm still going to enjoy the process of doing the weigh-ins and doing the meet and doing the competition, all that type of stuff. So I guess it's multifaceted, really how you want to, do that. But going into it, you have to, through your career, you have to understand that, a race car driver doesn't usually race car drive his entire life. A powerlifter doesn't powerlift his entire life.
Yeah.
Not always. I mean, there's rare occasions, but it's not everybody. So having that mindset is key.
And when he says not him specifically, when he says you get to a point where you're too old, we're not talking about age, because you could start when you're 70 and do it just fine. We're talking about longevity of lifting.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, training age is what I'm talking about. Absolutely. So like for me, my training age is significantly older than yours and most of your athletes, like by twofold or maybe even threefold.
Yep.
And so I've definitely got in the weights over time, especially if you're doing it young and didn't have coaches like I did for 10 years, I did a lot of things wrong. Yep.
I'll also say this is where like gear comes in nicely. Knee sleeves.
Not performance enhancing drugs.
No, okay. Not that kind of gear. I'm talking like knee sleeves or straps. Those type of things that can help you in your lifting longevity.
I say this all the time.
Because people are always like, well, I feel like it's cheating or I'm not as good if I'm using knee sleeves or because I'm using wrist straps. That's like cheating. And I'm like, no, that's you extending your lifting life.
Yeah. And everybody else is doing it, so it's not cheating at all.
Yeah.
If you're the only one not doing it, it's just, you're just not doing it correctly. Like everybody else, I mean, okay, there's a difference between like sleeves, knee wraps, and like a squat suit. But if you've been lifting a super heavy amount of weight for a long period of time and you still want to do it and your hip hurts so bad and a squat suit helps you continue to lift, is that bad?
No,
it's not. It's absolutely great. You love to lift. The squat suit helps take pressure off your hip. Do it. Same thing with wrists. Same thing with knees. All that type of stuff. And I tell everybody, hey, but after you die, you're going to be long gone, buried in the ground. Those iron plates are going to be lifted by somebody else, right? So you might as well protect yourself and lift those weights as long as possible. Get some gear, get some good gear, protect yourself forever, lift as long as you can. I think that's the best advice we can give you. And get a coach, because if you don't have a coach, there's so much knowledge out there in the world today. Get the right coach, get a good coach. Don't be like me and just do it on your own and have other people that just give you terrible advice. Do more steroids and lift more weights and eat more McDonald's. That was my advice I got when I was younger. It's great advice.
It's the best advice.
Yeah, and it's definitely served me very well in my career. You have anything else to put out there in the powerlifting world and the Go Heavy or Go Home podcast listeners?
No, just okay. If you're a female that wants to do powerlifting and isn't sure where to start, you can reach me.
But prerequisites are you have to have a knee replacement. No I'm kidding.
I do have a lot of those, though.
Yeah.
A lot of those clients.
We can absolutely help you. If you've had some injuries, whether it's shoulder injury or elbow, shoulder, wrist, knee, hip, we can help you with that for sure. You can still lift if you want to. Depending on how severity the injury is, and working with your physical therapists and your doctors and stuff. We're very good about that. But all right, Megan. Well, I think this was a great podcast. Thanks for being on. Thanks for joining me. And I think that's it, right?
Yep.
Cool. All right, guys. Well, I'm going to leave you like I always leave you, and that is success is not final. Failure is not fatal. It is the courage to continue that counts. Everything you want in this life is on the other side of your fear. So go out there and take some action today. All right? Later.
Bye.
Thanks for joining us on this epic journey of strength. If you liked this episode, please leave us a review and share with a friend. To stay connected, hit that subscribe button. All right, until next time, go heavy or go home.